up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Trust Your Board podcast. My name's Stephen Wright, joined by Mr. William Monroe. Well, how you doing, man?
Hey, Steve. Doing pretty well over here. It's Monday evening. It's always good to have that first day of the work week in the books.
Yeah, that's for sure. And a busy week. We had to get this one recorded a little bit earlier than we typically do. Which is nice for me because that gives me plenty of time to edit the rest of the week. A lot of flexibility.
Yeah, I'm sure it makes it a little bit easier for you. Gives you more time if you can piecemeal it. You don't have to do it all in one shot if you really need to spread it out.
Yeah, absolutely. And what I'll be editing today is going to be a Dynasty Startup. We were saying before the show, it's been a while since either of us have done one, and it feels kind of weird going into it. Not sure what we're really going to be doing here, right?
Yeah, I was just looking at kind of the ADP, where people fall, and trying to figure out kind of what I want to do as we go along. I know, we've kind of bounced around in the mindset of, your valuable players like the running backs, but then they don't have as long a shelf life. I know we typically try to build around the receiving core that confident you're going to be able to use for multiple years, but that's the nice thing about a startup. There's just so many different strategies going on that multiple people could come away from it happy with their draft, but drafting for very different things.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the one thing you never want to do is you never want to draft for like 3 years out, right? Like draft to compete now, because the 3 years out becomes 3 years out every single year. You're always 2 or 3 years out, and it just never comes.
Yeah, it keeps pushing it back.
Yeah, no, I mean the draft could fall a certain way where you kind of get pushed in that position if you take too many risks or something. But you never really want to go in with that. But yeah, it's gonna be interesting. So I'm drafting out of the 3 spot, and I have a target in mind already.
Do you think they're going to be there?
I think so, because it's not one of the big running backs.
Okay.
And I think that's what's going to help me out there. But we'll see. I'm more curious as to what you're going to do back in the 108 and who gets to you.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. It looks like the ADP has 7 running backs going and then the first couple receivers. So I was looking at it and kind of just anticipating getting one of the top receivers and then seeing what running backs would get back to me in the next round to try to see about striking a balance, because I feel like we've usually gone all one way or all the other way. So I almost want to see what it'd be like to kind of strike a nice balance.
Yeah, that's fine. I don't think I'm going to go in with any particular thought, like whether I'm going to go the normal kind of wide receiver heavy or balanced or running back heavy. I mean, clearly I just said I'm not taking a running back in the first place. I'm not doing running back heavy. But yeah, I don't know what I'm going to do. We'll see.
Yeah, got to be fluid, got to be flexible.
Yeah, we have no defined stopping point, really. We got 28 rounds here. I highly doubt we'll make it 28 rounds, but we're just gonna go until we get to the hour mark, and we'll see where we end up. Does that sound good?
Works for me.
Cool. Before we get started, as always, give us a follow on Twitter at Trust Your Board. Subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts, and you can follow us on Twitter if you'd like to follow along with the draft board. Twitter handle is just Trust Your Board as well. Let's go ahead and get the ball rolling here, Will, and see what does get to me. So Saquon and CMC coming off the board first. I don't think there's any real surprise with either of those 2 picks. Are you surprised at all?
No, I know the ADP has Barkley a little lower, but I probably would think about those 2 as the best value when it comes to talent. I mean, you got your Dalvin Cook, Kamara, maybe a little riskier with the uncertainty at quarterback, Jonathan Taylor, Dirk Henry, but I think those 2 make the most sense.
I'm actually starting to doubt my strategy a little bit.
Yeah? You're looking at Dalvin Cook now? Didn't think he would be there?
No, I'm actually not looking at Cook. I'm somewhat looking at Taylor. Because my original thought process was I'm thinking of all their big running backs, CMC, Barkley, Cook, Kamara, Derrick Henry. They've all been in the league for a few years now. And I'd rather get somebody really young. I forgot about Jonathan Taylor.
Yeah.
Only been in there for a year, so you're going to get you're going to get more years out of him, ideally, out of the other ones.
Yeah.
But really, my pick was going to be Tyreek Hill.
Mm-hmm.
I tend to strike early. You're getting the Pat Mahomes wide receiver. You're going to have him for a very long time. He's going to be highly productive. The last, my last startup, I had the 101, and I went with Hopkins. And I didn't, and that was one with Houston. I didn't regret that at all. I ended up winning back-to-back championships soon after that. So, that worked out well. But then I'm also looking, it's like, well, Justin Jefferson's even younger.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't have Mahomes. Adams got the Rodgers situation. I probably want to do that. But A.J. Brown, also young. But, Tannehill isn't Patrick Mahomes. Metcalf popped in my head. Stephon Diggs popped in my head. So now I'm looking, I'm like, well, I could grab Jonathan Taylor here and maybe Metcalf gets back to me or Diggs gets back to me, even like Ridley, the brand new situation there. Julio's gone. So it's complicated matters. On the flip side, I could take Tyreek, lock down that wide receiver 1, and then maybe like Antonio Gibson gets back to me. And I still got a young guy. So I think I'm going to stick with that strategy. I'm going to take Tyreek. We'll roll the dice to see what kind of running back gets back to me. It's definitely a gamble, but I've done this plenty of times before. So we're going to go ahead and lock him in. We'll see what gets back to you in your fun little position here. All running backs, Nick Chubb, Jonathan Taylor, Dalvin Cook, Kamara, you are on the clock.
Yeah, it's interesting because I know you and I have mentioned just kind of overall, we're not the captain of the Derrick Henry fan club, but Derrick Henry sitting here at 1-8 is something that I don't think I can pass up. And I also, as much as I'm thinking about winning now as well as winning down the road, you also got to ask yourself, how active is you anticipating your league's going to be? Most people in a startup, you may not know everyone or know their fantasy preferences or what they would do in a dynasty league, but you got to think about just the value of each player too. And you got a guy like Derrick Henry that, while he's, not particularly young, right? 26 for a running back, but he's got a lot of wear and tear on the tires. He's definitely going to have an extremely high value that, you kind of just think about. If you draft him, it's almost like you're drafting, a young running back and a first round pick or two. So you have to just kind of think about the value of the player. And if I'm looking at what's on the board, you got all your quarterbacks, all your tight ends, outside of Tyreek, all of your wide receivers. I think Derrick Henry is just kind of the best overall value of a guy that's going to give me impact right away. I think, he gives you a nice base to start as a contender. And then, it also gives you the ability to trade him during the season if you do want to get younger. If you do come out, get injuries elsewhere, he's the guy that you can get a haul for and, look to get, younger as well as draft picks. So, going to go with Dirk Henry here. We'll see if we strike balance or not. We'll see what receivers get back, but didn't anticipate, a guy like Derrick Henry falling and a wide receiver going ahead of me to you. Definitely helped with, one of those kind of big 7 guys getting there. So we're going to lock in Derrick Henry. After Henry, Justin Jefferson, Javonte Adams, Pat Mahomes, Cam Akers, Ezekiel Elliott, A.J. Brown, DK Metcalf, and DeAndre Swift. So a couple of big receivers off the board there. Your Pat Mahomes goes, and a couple more running backs. Now Travis Kelce's interesting. Obviously not particularly young, but if I want to lean in and be a contender, that could be an interesting position to really lock down 2 of the top guys at their positions. A pivot could be a Stephon Diggs, a DeAndre Hopkins, Calvin Ridley, CeeDee Lamb. There's a lot of young receivers there that I think are interesting. So it's probably Diggs if I do go receiver. And then running back, looking at J.K. Dobbins, Aaron Jones, Najee Harris, Antonio Gibson, Clyde, quite a few there as well. Kind of want to see what it would look like to go with the early tight end. Like we said, Travis Kelce is not particularly young, 31. But with Pat Mahomes, I think it's going to allow him to kind of age pretty gracefully as long as he remains with the team. And, really the way that the board fell, I was planning on going with a young receiver, but Derrick Henry was available there. I was planning on probably going with a young running back here in the second round, but looking into it, if you win the league in the first round, you're really paying for probably, 4 or 5 seasons worth of entry fees. And you get the title, which is ultimately what you're looking for. So looks like we're going to be putting together a little bit more of a contending team, at least to start here. We're going to go with Kelce and not really have to worry about that position here, for the rest of the draft. So we're going to go with Travis Kelce and see what happens. After him goes Calvin Ridley, J.K. Dobbins, Stephon Diggs, Aaron Jones, and then back to you.
Man, I wish Diggs would have got to me,
Yeah.
man. I would have lost my mind. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how things play out on your end. Tight end is not something that we've done early all that often in any dynasty league, I don't think. No. It's
Usually
not
waited
something
and get
we
like
do.
a young guy at some point.
Yeah. So taking a look here at the availability, I'm just going to focus on running backs and wide receivers. I mean, we've got all of our quarterbacks outside of Mahomes. We got all of our tight ends outside of Kelce, so I'm not going to run those down. But we got Najee here, Antonio Gibson, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Joe Mixon, Austin Eckler, Josh Jacobs, et cetera, et cetera. So a lot of good options there. Wide receiver, plenty of good options. DeAndre Hopkins, CeeDee Lamb, Terry McLaurin, Michael Thomas, Chase, Godwin, Allen Robinson, the list goes on. It would be really tempting to pair Tyreek Hill with DeAndre Hopkins. That would be something else. But I think I am going to go running back. I might go back-to-back running back here. But I'm going to grab the guy that I had mentioned earlier, and I'm going to grab Antonio Gibson. I think he's got, I don't want to say he's got the highest upside out of all of these, because I think Clyde's got better upside given the team he's on. I don't want to start my draft with two Chiefs, especially one of which that underperformed. I still believe in Clyde, but just going to, I view Gibson as a safer option. I like Gibson a lot this year. So I'm going to lock in Gibson. And then we're going to see, ideally, I can grab another running back. We'll see what gets to me. Kittle goes off the board. There goes Najee Harris and Mixon at the turn. So that team one there, Barkley, Najee, Joe Mixon. That is they can add some good wide receivers here in the next few rounds. That's a really good team.
Yeah, and you got a lot of value there just because of the premium at the position if you do need to make trades.
Yeah, absolutely. If one of them pops off, or I guess if Najee pops off early, and you're worried about Barkley's injury history, you can flip him and get a haul or, whatever you want to do there. But I still got Clyde available to me. I got Austin Eckler, Josh Jacobs, Miles Sanders, David Montgomery. We still got most of the same wide receivers on the board. I'm going to go ahead and grab another running back because I'm confident, even going further down the list at wide receiver, Amari Cooper, Kenny Galladay, Julio. I'd be fine with a Julio. There's fine wide receiver 2 options here where I know, running back, you start getting further down there and you're in the AJ Dillons and the Mosterts and stuff. So I want to be careful there. And I think the guy I want's going to be Austin Eckler. Not super young anymore, but not old either. Kind of in that mid tier, but attached to a nice young quarterback with an offense that should be ascending. So I'm confident with him and Gibson. Both of them can catch passes as well, which gives me a lot of upside with the both of them. So we're going to lock him in there, and then we'll see what gets back to me. I think I can be pretty flexible with my next pick. DeAndre Hopkins finally goes there at the 3-4. There goes Clyde, Kyler Murray, second quarterback off the board at the 3-6, and then Josh Jacobs at the 3-7 right before you.
Yeah, interesting. I think, most people probably would say Allen is your second quarterback. So it's interesting to see Kyler go ahead of him there. So taking a look at what we got, all the quarterbacks outside of Mahomes and Murray, all the tight ends outside of Kelce and Kittle. Now, wide receiver, we're looking at Terry McLaurin, Michael Thomas, Jamar Chase, Chris Godwin, Allen Robinson, DJ Moore, Keenan Allen. So a pretty good and pretty interesting and diverse pack, right? You got a rookie in there, you got a veteran in Michael Thomas that people are uncertain on with the quarterback change, and then some, good young receivers. So that could be, the move here. I may double up on a receiver because I'm not in love with all the running backs. Miles Sanders is interesting to pair with Henry, but I'm a little uncertain as to kind of the window there. We'll see what the Eagles do. We'll see if he ends up re-signing or not. So I think I'm going to aim here to double up on receiver. There's still some interesting running backs that I may look to grab in the next round. But if I'm looking at receiver, you've got a Terry McLaurin, you've got a Michael Thomas, which is definitely interesting. It's tough to pass on him in the third round. 28 years old, but he still is, only like 5 years in the league, 6 years in the league now. So it's crazy to think that of him as like an old player. But the quarterback uncertainty is scary. But you got guys like, Terry McLaurin, Jamar Chase, that have young quarterbacks. Or I'm sorry, Jamar Chase, young quarterback, Terry McLaurin, uncertainty at the quarterback position as well. But it seems like people are a little more confident in Terry than Michael Thomas. So interesting there. You got Chris Godwin, uncertainty there, Allen Robinson. Actually, the more I think about it, the more I do think that I may actually go with Miles Sanders, because as I look at the rest of the running backs, you got David Montgomery, ETN, Chris Carson, Kareem Hunt, Williams. The running back position is either younger or older after that. So looking at just kind of the value and what's left behind that, I think I actually may lock in another running back here in Miles Sanders, and then just kind of take one of those receivers that'll be back available to me here at the 5th pick of the 4th round. So going to pivot here on the board, just kind of looking what's available, and we're going to go Miles Sanders, pair him with Derrick Henry and Kelsey. After that, Josh Allen, Michael Thomas, Terry McLaurin, Darren Waller, Travis Etienne, Jamar Chase, Kyle Pitts, and David Montgomery. So your running backs, you're looking at Chris Carson, Javonte Williams, Kareem Hunt, James Robinson. Wide receivers, you still got a Chris Godwin, Allen Robinson, DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, Michael Evans. Some really good wide receivers there. It's tough to decide really what I want to do with that. I'm looking at being more of a competing team. So I'm trying to really think where I'd rank these guys when it comes to redraft. And there's a lot of really uncertainty with Allen Robinson. I think he may be one of the best of the bunch there, but what do you really have in him this year with possibly a rookie quarterback or Andy Dalton? DJ Moore, new quarterback, his other receiver, has a little more familiarity with his new quarterback in Darnold. So at this point, I think I'm looking at Godwin or Keenan Allen as the guys. Give me a little more consistency to start the receiver position, and then can kind of maybe take some shots on guys after that. But, having the consistency of Henry and Travis Kelsey, and hopefully a consistency in Miles Sanders this year. I think I'm going to go with Chris Godwin, just, a little bit younger. There's sure uncertainty at the quarterback position, unlike Keenan Allen, but you're getting a 5-year younger player. So at some point you do have to look to some youth. Miles Sanders only 24, Chris Godwin only 25. So really evens out the age there. And as a guy that, if all things, don't go well in this year, I'm thinking, Chris Godwin's, want to be one of the pillars of the team, and you can trade a Derrick Henry for a young player and picks. You can trade Kelsey for a younger player and a pick or two, probably. So you can really rebuild a team easily with having those 2 big pieces to move if needed. But if your team ends up playing well, you have, a couple of very good players here for the next year, maybe a few years. So we're going to go with Godwin as the first receiver. After him, Justin Herbert, Allen Robinson, Amari Cooper, DJ Moore, one of our favorite players, right before you.
Yeah, that puts me in a pretty interesting spot here.
Yeah.
So some of the running backs, we got Chris Carson, Javonte Williams, Kareem Hunt, James Robinson, Myles Gaskin, Rojo. At the wide receiver position, Keenan Allen that you mentioned, Mike Evans, Brandon Ayuk's up here, T. Higgins, Kenny Galladay, Devonta Smith, Cooper Kupp, Julio. So some real solid options here on both sides.
You could look to rebuild our receiving core.
I could, and grab Keenan Allen.
Mike Evans there too.
Yeah, I know, for real. I know Mike Evans in 3 different spots. I don't think I want to pair Keenan and Eckler. I mean, it's not that big of a deal, but there's plenty of other options where I could just diversify it away.
Mm-hmm.
Because everyone looks at Herbert and says, next big thing, blah, blah, blah. They said the same thing about Baker after his first year, and that did not go well. So, I'm not just going to pencil Herbert in as being, an all-star. And that could hurt everybody. But we got Chris Carson here, not a long shelf life, but a starting running back for at least 1 year, maybe 2. Javonte Williams, another interesting running back, probably 50-50 split this year, but then, really taking over next year. Kareem Hunt is going to be a good 3 for my team. I don't know about James Robinson. Gaskin's got a year in him. And you start getting into the younger guys. From a wide receiver perspective, Keenan's good. I would love Keenan here, but I really just don't want to pair him with Eckler. Mike Evans, awesome option. Julio's further down the list, and I wouldn't mind adding Julio. I think he's still fine, and he'd be the wide receiver 2 for my team. Mm-hmm. So that would be pretty attractive. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead, and I'm pretty confident with Gibson and Eckler. I think I'm going to get a little bit more youth and grab Javonte Williams here. Again, I really like Chris Carson. I wouldn't mind adding him, but with Gibson and Eckler, I feel like, I only have to start 2 running backs. I could get away with, playing Javonte Williams when I need to, depending on what his workload ends up being, and if he starts taking over in the back half of the year. So I'm comfortable rolling the dice there. So we're going to lock him in. Mike Evans and Keenan Allen go right after me there. There's Lamar Jackson, the 501, T. Higgins at the 5-2, and now I am here, and I'm going to go ahead and grab Julio now. I think he's still got plenty left in the tank. You can't double cover the man. He's got AJ Brown there. That should open some things up for him. Tannehill's pretty good with the deep ball, and I'm really happy with him as my 2. So, thinking long term, at some point, I'm going to need an exit strategy. Ideally, if he blows up this year, if I, for whatever reason, this team's not in contention, I could sell him to a contender. Maybe I use him for a year or another year and a half, and then I move on to him from something. So there's an exit plan that needs to be executed on there ideally, but I'll worry about that later. So we're going to lock in Julio. Mark Andrews, there we go, at the 5-4, another tight end off the board. Devontae Smith, the 5-5, Chris Carson, the 5-6, and then Ayuk at the 5-7. You are up.
Yeah, so a couple of interesting guys there. Smith was interesting. I like the Julio pick. I was looking to possibly go with a young receiver here and then see if Julio got back to me in the 6th round. I think kind of pairing him with a young receiver that you don't need to use this year, but could possibly replace him in a year or 2 as your wide receiver 2 is a good strategy there. And with Julio, whether you have him or whether you're drafting him, I think at this point you don't want to move him until during the season. That's probably going to really be the only time you're going to get anything close to the value that you're hoping for Julio, when a team really kind of sees the championship in their sights and they're one big player away. And I do think he is going to be somewhere in that probably wide receiver 2 range just because of the volume on the team. I see him somewhere probably between 15 and 20, 21, right? Because you don't know how it's going to break down between him and AJ Brown. You imagine AJ still the number 1, but it could be a pretty even split. There's just probably not going to be a ton of volume there. So I don't know. But with him, I think you hope he gets out to a good start. And if you want to move him, I think you probably wait till the season. That's where you're going to get your most value.
Yeah, I agree.
Now, if we're looking what's on the board here, running backs, Kareem Hunt, James Robinson, Myles Gaskin, Ronald Jones, Chase Edmonds, Michael Carter, Trace Sermon. So there's not a ton there yet. Raheem Mostert's not bad, a little further down. Probably a little shorter shelf life. Mike Davis, Fournette. I do typically like to build up receivers, and I'm going to take a look at that next. But Kareem Hunt still being there is really good value, I think. Something that, getting a third running back that is going to be usable at the very least in the flex position, but as something that, I can plug in if needed. If I do end up moving Derrick Henry, I feel okay with Miles Sanders, Hunt, and probably a younger running back that you get back for Henry plus. So Hunt seems like probably the play here. And then looking at receiver on the way back, you got Kenny Galladay, who I don't love the team and the setup, but I do like the player. And he is 27, but I think there's going to be volume. You don't pay him the amount of money he got paid to not give him that volume. You got Cooper Kupp, Jerry Jeudy, Jalen Waddle, Deontay Johnson, Claypool, Chark, Lockett. So there's still a good bit of guys. You got your Robert Woods and Sutton a little later that you can plug in. So I think there are wide receiver 2s that you're going to be able to get later, not later in the draft, but in the next 2-3 rounds, that if you did end up getting a young receiver, you can pair with him. So we're going to gamble on the receiver position and lock in my third running back here in Kareem Hunt, with a team, once again, that, kind of is going to have a little more of an eye on this year contending. And another guy that I think is going to hold his value at least for this year, if not the year after, and a guy that you can look to move on from if you really want to. TJ Hawkinson goes after that. Dak Prescott, James Robinson, Cooper Kupp, Galladay, Claypool, Deontay Johnson, and Jerry Jeudy. A couple of the receivers I was looking at there, which is interesting. Galladay, Deontay Johnson, and Jeudy were guys I was thinking about. Jalen Waddle, top guy here on the ADP board. If I wanted to go young, being a little more of a contender, I'd probably look at more of a guy that can help me in the now. Quarterbacks, you got Russell Wilson, Trevor Lawrence, Joe Burrow, Aaron Rodgers, Jalen Hurts, Deshaun Watson, Fields. You got a lot of guys left there. Tight ends, Spain, Gesicki, Goddard, Henry, or Smith. So at my spot here, I'm really just looking at running backs and receivers. Waddles is definitely an option because I think there's value there, especially if he pops early. You might be able to get, pair him with something to upgrade to one of the receivers that are off the board already here. But DJ Chark, I don't know what to make of DJ Chark this year. What are your thoughts on DJ this year as well as going forward?
I feel pretty good about Chark. I liked him a lot last year. Urban Meyer has apparently told him to bulk up, and add some muscle. He wants him to be more like the Michael Thomas mold, which would be awesome, obviously. I still think the talent is there, and I like the fact that he's tied with Trevor Lawrence. So if it was my decision and I'm looking down these guys, I would take him over Waddle. I would take him over Lockett. I'd take him over Thielen. Take him over Juju. I would take him over everyone here, with the exception of maybe Cortland Sutton.
Yeah, Sutton.
But I'd probably take him over Sutton because he's got a quarterback and Sutton doesn't.
Yeah.
But I do like Sutton, and I kind of want him to get to me. So maybe you take DJ Chark.
Yeah, Sutton and Woods were guys that were interesting. Your Debo. So there's definitely guys I think that I'm okay with as my wide receiver 2 a little bit later that I might be able to get next round, which kind of lends me to possibly look to Waddle. It is a divergent from this team that I'm building. It's ready to win now. Although I do think Waddle could step in and have some value. He's definitely not going to have the volume of a Smith and probably even a Chase. Having Parker there, having Will Fuller there. Is there anybody else outside of Preston?
No, Fuller, Parker, Gesicki.
Gesicki, yeah.
Not the position, but he's catching passes.
Yeah,
right?
and you also don't know
your other option.
how much passing is going to be there. Now, in Dynasty here, I mean, Waddle, outside of maybe Parker, is probably the guy that, even this year, if not the year after, is the guy that I think is going to be the most valuable, receiving option on the team. Probably the most valuable skill player. You could argue Parker here in the slightly more short term, but Fuller, I'm not sold on him there. I think it is going to be Waddle. So for me, I am debating between him and Chark. It's just rookie quarterback is a little scary, but we've seen rookie quarterbacks come in, and if they are good, like Herbert, really can support a good wide receiver, and Keenan Allen. You got your Burrow. I don't know where T. Higgins finished last year, or Boyd, but I think they were at least decent. So it's tough. I think I probably go with DJ Chark just because of the way this team's looking. We'll probably be second guessing passing on a young guy like Waddle for a while, but I think I need a little bit more upside, having some stability at running back and some stability at Godwin. So this year, we're going to go with DJ Chark and see what happens after that. We got Ronald Jones off the board, Myles Gaskin, Juju Smith-Schuster, Jalen Waddle. To you, either what you were looking for, I believe, did occur.
It did. I am in a tough spot here, I think. I don't want a quarterback. The running back is drying up, right? Like we have Chase Edmonds, Michael Carter, Trey Sermon, Melvin Gordon, AJ Dillon, Mostert, Zach Moss, Mike Davis. Like there's some fine options there. A lot of them, Chase is up in the air. Carter, Sermon, more probably longer term plays. Carter might maybe this year. Sermon, if there's an injury, AJ Dillon's a longer term play. Mostert's a 1 year guy. Gordon's a 1 year guy. Moss, we don't know. Mike Davis is a 1 year guy. So it's drying up.
Yeah. For context, only 6 of the 12 teams in the draft have 3 running backs or more. There are every 6 teams have 2 or less running backs on the roster already. And, given what's available, it's definitely seems like it's probably going to dry up quicker and quicker too.
Yeah, and the team right after me, Team 2, is only got McCaffrey, so he could go running back, and just really dry up before it gets back to me.
One team, Team 10 doesn't have any running backs here through 6 rounds.
Yeah, so that's tough. Wide receivers, like I said, I like Sutton. If I like Debo too. I like Lockett. I like the other guys there, but Debo and Sutton are both young. I like the talent in both of them. I wouldn't mind adding both of them. So that's top of mind. I'm also looking at the tight end position, and boy, if you think wide receiver is drying up, tight end is like gold.
Mm-hmm.
Noah Fant's there, fine. Gesicki, fine. Goddard is probably the one that interests me the most. Once you get after that, Hunter Henry or Smith, Tanya, like you're just not in a very good tier, right? So it's kind of worrisome. And I don't think Goddard would get back to me looking at ADP. Yeah, probably not. It's a chance, but probably not. So I'm in a tough spot because I got a bunch of guys I'm not going to get. So we'll go ahead and we'll throw caution to the wind at the tight end position. And I'm going to get my running back first because I'm scared of this team after me. And then we'll try to get Sutton on my next pick. So from the running backs here, I don't even know which one I really want. Like, I'd rather have probably Sermon for like the long-term value. But I already got a longer-term guy in Javonte Williams. Not longer-term, but not going to be super valuable this year. And I feel like I should be pairing him with Mike Davis. It's a bit of a reach, but it seems like the best move for the team. So I'm going to go ahead and lock in Mike Davis there as my kind of 1-year hold. This guy did not draft a running back. Wow. This dude. Okay.
Yeah.
Russell Wilson. Then Noah Fant. Robert Woods is at the top of the 7th. And Tyler Lockett. So this dude's got McCaffrey. Only McCaffrey.
So maybe he thinks he can break McCaffrey into 2 or 3 running backs.
Yeah, and he could if he wanted to. So yeah, it's interesting. I'm going to go ahead and just grab Sutton. I've talked enough. I don't need to talk anymore. Little mini quarterback run. Trevor Lawrence and Joe Burrow go back to back. Adam Thielen, and then Bateman goes off the board.
Yeah, interesting. Couple of quarterbacks going. I think at this point only 1, 2, 3. So only one other team outside of you and I don't have a quarterback left. Now you don't know that teams aren't going to take a second quarterback in a dynasty league, let alone in a mock draft. But you still have some good value, I think, on the board. Aaron Rodgers is still there, so I get people a little scared of that, but he is one of the best quarterbacks in the league. Jalen Hurts, I think, is going to be a very good value this year, at least, if not the next couple of years. Who knows about Watson, but you got Justin Fields and Trey Lance. You got Matt Stafford, Tua, Tannehill, Baker, Wilson. So there's decent quarterbacks, Matt Ryan, Brady. Decent quarterbacks, I think, that you can, kind of plug and hold and build a good team around and maybe look for a young quarterback down the road, kind of like we've done in the past. So at this point, I will wait at least another round here, given that only one guy behind me doesn't have a quarterback. Probably, wait beyond this pick and my next pick. So we've got Michael Carter, you got Trey Sermon, Melvin Gordon, AJ Dillon, Raheem Mostert. Yeah, so Raheem Mostert's interesting. I think I look at the receiver position here. I'll see what's available there. But is this a league, if this was going to be an actual league, that would be starting only 3 running backs, or could you start 4 running backs feasibly in this?
It would be our normal work league, so you can only do 3.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I still think the value is probably there, just given what's available. You got young guys like Carter and Sermon, so they could be options as well. But I think we'll look to see what's available at receiver here, and then maybe kind of swing back at that. So receiver, you've got Odell Beckham. This is an interesting upside play, especially for this team. You've got Deebo Samuel. We'll see about what the volume looks like there. LaVisca, Pittman, Boyd. So not really in love with those either, but I think of those, Deebo probably sticks out the most. Odell probably has, maybe the most untapped value right now. Value's pretty far down, but if he comes out and looks like the Odell of the past, it gives me, a ton of pop for the team. And here in the 7th round, I think that is possibly what we're looking for, as well as some trade value. So I think actually I'm talking myself into Odell. I'm not a huge fan of him just in general right now.
Yeah, this is surprising.
But him being there, yeah, I think it's just the way the team is built. I've got a lot of stability pretty much across the board there, outside of like Chark and maybe Miles. So having him as the third receiver and just so much stability there, it's a lot of pop. And I think just him being here at this stage of the game, I mean, he's been in the league for a while, but he's still only 28. I feel like, we're treating him like he's well over 30. But I think, obviously we'll see where the value is there. I mean, for me, it's him or Debo, and I think he still is the clear-cut number one passing option on the team, when healthy, obviously. With Debo, you're looking at Kittle still the one, and then there's still that debate between Ayuk and Debo, and we see that with Ayuk going 2 rounds earlier. Not really in love with any of the other guys, so, I mean, it's Odell or, grab a Mostert, but I think I could get Odell here and then maybe take a younger running back or even a younger receiver in the next round just to get some more youth on the team. So we're going to go with an upside shot and Odell Beckham here, get some pop on the team. And, if he's healthy, this team could be a major contender this year the way it's being constructed. So we'll go Odell, after him, Pittman, Michael Carter, Laviska Shenault, Chase Edmonds, Trey Sermon, Deebo Samuel, Melvin Gordon, and A.J. Dillon. So interesting. I still have Mostert on the board. Tough to pass him up, just the way this team's being built. It's going to be like all in now. But I do think there are guys that have value, if your team ends up busting out, to be able to trade this year. So Mostert probably would be the pick here if I go running back, because I'm not really a fan of much else. And, interesting, you see Trey Sermon go before him, hasn't even played it down yet. I get that he's a lot younger, only 22, while Mostert is 29. But I do think there's room for multiple backs in this offense. So I think both of them could succeed. So Mostert would be the pick here if I do go with that. Other than him, Tyler Boyd, Curtis Samuel, Fuller, Robbie Anderson. So there's some interesting guys there, and there's some younger guys that I can get a little later as well. I think Mostert's the pick here, just kind of the value of the position and the guys that are there. So going to go Mostert, get my 4th running back in. After him, Gesicki, Goddard, Tyler Boyd, Fournette. It seems like you were going to strike at tight end here, but that does not work out for you.
No, it didn't. Well, that sucks. Man, that puts me in a pretty tough spot at tight end, doesn't it? Wow. Okay, so let's see here. Run down the team real quick. We got Tyreek Hill, Julio Jones, Cortland Sutton, Antonio Gibson, Eckler, Javonte Williams, and Mike Davis. I am going to go ahead and add another wide receiver here. Got some pretty interesting options. Curtis Samuel. I like Curtis Samuel. I can get behind Will Fuller for a year. That's fine. Robbie Anderson is interesting. I don't care about Corey Davis. Right now, Moore's a little high. Jarvis Landry is fine. But we're starting to dip down a little bit into some of the guys you're taking shots on. And in the meantime, I do like Robbie Anderson a lot. So I'm going to go ahead and add him in here. Actually going to perfectly balance my team, 4-4. That's pretty nice. So we're going to go ahead and add him. And then what I'm seeing here, Will, we got 20 minutes left in the pod. So I guess we could try to speed it up a little bit and see how many picks we can burn through here.
Works.
I'm going to possibly surprise you and just draft Trey Lance.
Oh, getting the quarterback. When you start a little run too, it quarterback.
Like. I know there's definitely a bit of a run that just kicked off. Maybe I can add a Tom Brady or a Matt Ryan later to hold me over. That'd be the game plan there. But the run, like we said, I didn't even read off everybody else. So after I picked Robbie Anderson, went Zach Moss and Curtis Samuel. I rounded out the 8th round. To start the 9th was Corey Davis, Connor, my pick of Lance, and then Rodgers went Jalen Hurts, Rondell Moore, and Deshaun Watson.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I'm looking at the guys at running back and receiver, and I'm not overly thrilled about any of them. So I think I'm probably going to strike it at quarterback here as well. And it's interesting. I I have Fields, Tua, Zach Wilson as the young guys available. Still have Matt Stafford, Tannehill, Brady, and Ryan. So what I may do here is look to get Fields, who's probably, I think he's probably my QB2 of the class, but he's right there with Trey Lance, who you just took. And then hope that maybe like a Matt Stafford or Tannehill gets back to me and just kind of double up on those, get my quarterback position taken care of, and then can really just kind of build the rest of my team around that. So the way that the board falls, I think kind of the tier has fully fallen off outside of, getting some rookie receivers like Terrace Marshall. Elijah Moore is interesting as someone possibly in the next round, but I think we're going to go here and take Justin Fields, get the quarterback of the future out of the way, and then I wouldn't mind going, like you said, with like a Brady or an older guy a little later. There goes Stafford, so that doesn't pan out there, but I kind of was, as I look down, seeing Elijah Moore, a guy that you and I are both high on, given that they've got an Odell, an older-ish guy. Chark isn't particularly old at 24, but want to maybe get some more youth at the receiver position, and I think he could break out here. So I'm going to go with Elijah Moore, getting my fourth receiver, so I get some balance here with the 4 receivers, 4 running backs, my tight end, and my young quarterback. Still likely need to go with one of the older guys, but going to strike here at Elijah Moore to get a nice young rookie receiver to pair with this team. After him, Cooks, Hunter Henry, Logan Thomas, and Robert Tonyan. So another tight end run. At this point, I'm assuming you're just like punting completely, or I don't know what your plan of attack is here for quarterback or for tight end.
Yeah, I don't know what my plan of attack is either. I was probably going to draft Hunter Henry, which is amazing because I was like, okay, I got to convince myself to do this. I don't want to do it, but I should be doing it. And that's gone. So Freiermuth, Evan Ingram, Jonnu, Cole Kmet, Tyler Higbee, Adam Troutman, Austin Hooper. These are some of the guys available. Blake Jarwin. So I think the overall strategy right now would be, it's a shame because I want like a few people. I want like 2 people in this tier. Like if I could get Ingram and Cole Kmet and tag team them with a Jared Cook, or Kmet and Troutman and pair it with a Jared Cook. I'd like to do that. I don't want to burn that much draft capital pulling it off. That's kind of my issue. But I need to draft one of them, and I'm going to draft. I think I'm going to surprise myself. I'm going to draft Cole Kmet. He's got like the fewest. He's got the least amount of competition on the team as far as receptions goes. And that's what I'm going to use to justify that. Freiermuth went off right after me, and then Tua. Michael Gallup started the 11th. Singletary went right after that. So back on the clock, we got Gainwell, Tony Pollard, David Johnson, the starter, Naeem Hines, Chuba, Matson, Philip Lindsay, Gus Edwards. At the wide receiver position, we got Jalen Reagor, St. Brown, Henry Ruggs, Kadarius Toney, Devontae Parker, Daryl Mooney, Mike Williams. So some interesting options there at the wide receiver position. Running back's not too bad. Kind of Gainwell's kind of interesting. But I do want to grab one more wide receiver here, and I think I'm going to grab a young upside shot on Henry Ruggs here. I feel like I could do it. I got a lot of talent at the wide receiver position I'm not super worried about, so I'll roll the dice on Henry Ruggs. St. Brown went after me. Tony went Zach Wilson there at the 11-6. Reagor at the 11-7. You're on the clock.
Yeah, once again, still not many running backs. Naeem Hines, interesting, available. Top of the board. Kenny Gainwell, Pollard, David Johnson, Chuba, Madison, Philip Lindsay, Gus Edwards is a guy I like as well. But there's just not a ton there, so I'm kind of happy I've got 4 locked in, and can maybe take some dart throws a little later. Looking at the wide receiver position, possibly the quarterback position. If we're looking at tight end, you got Evan Ingram, Johnny Smith, Tyler Higbee, and Troutman, Hooper, Gronk. So some interesting guys. Zach Ertz. Nothing terribly like young that I be looking at as well to kind of get behind Kelsey, but I think he's got a few more years left, so I think I'd be able to make something happen at this point. So probably looking here once again at the wide receiver position. And you could have Devontae Parker there, which is an interesting one, still available. Darnell Mooney, who I'd like, and I think would be a decent pair with Justin Fields. You got Mike Williams, Denzel Mims, Hardman, Gabriel Davis. So some interesting options here. If I'm looking at it, it's really Parker, Mooney, or Mims. Do I want to go younger, or do I want to get a guy that I think could, really put up some numbers right now? And given that I've got Godwin, but really not a ton of super stable receivers, I think Parker's going to be the play here. Godwin and Chark I'm pretty confident in. Odell, of hoping is going to be able to put something together, but if worst case scenario Odell bottoms out or gets hurt again, and Moore isn't ready to play right away, Parker wouldn't be a bad third receiver here. So I'm going to get him as my fifth receiver. And then next round, looking probably at possibly another receiver, see what running backs are there, or maybe lock in that next quarterback for a little more stability for this year. So we go Parker, Baker Mayfield, Tony Pollard, Kenny Gainwell, Naeem Hines, Darnell Mooney, David Johnson, and Mike Williams. So a couple of guys go there. Denzel Mims would be someone I'd like. Already having Emmanuel Moore. Man, I can't get it. Elijah Moore. Took him in a couple rookie drafts too, and I can't remember his name. So after him, we are going to go probably look at that quarterback position, as I mentioned. A couple of pretty solid guys. You got Tannehill. You got Brady, Matt Ryan, Carson Wentz. At this stage, I probably am going to go Tannehill, pair him with the Justin Fields. I think Tannehill's got the perfect kind of 1 or 2 year window, while I hopefully need for Fields to kind of become an elite quarterback. So we're going to lock in Ryan Tannehill here. After him, Alexander Madison, Chuba Hubbard, Jonnu Smith, Philip Lindsay. Back to you.
So what I'm going to do is strike at the quarterback position. Tom Brady's the one I want. I am concerned that he could retire at the end of the year. We've had these concerns for 5 years now. And even if he does, I'm pretty confident with Trey Lance sitting there and that he'll be ready for next year. So I'm going to go ahead and lock in Tom Brady here. Gus Edwards goes. I was considering Edwards, Hardman, Higbee, and Wentz goes off the board. I think this is where I'm going to go ahead and just grab another tight end. And I think I am going to end up going with, I might reach for Blake Jarwin a little bit. I don't want to pair Kmet and Troutman because they're in similar situations to me, where Jarwin I trust a little bit more, which is weird because we haven't really seen it, but we saw it out of Dalton Schultz, and I'd imagine Jarwin would have done better. So I'm going to go ahead and grab Jarwin here. And I don't know. Yeah, we'll let you make your 2 picks. I'll make one last pick in the 14th, and then we'll run down our teams real quick. So I'll have one more pick. And I'm pretty cool with, whatever gets to me. We'll see. We're kind of, we're getting pretty late here.
Yeah.
So Denzel Mims goes, McKissick, Amari Rodgers, and Christian Kirk.
All right. So back to me here. At this point, got the quarterbacks. I mean, he's got Matt Ryan left. So if you really wanted to get a stranglehold in the position, Matt Ryan, might not be bad to pair with Tannehill and Fields. But I think you really want to... get more skill positions here. So we've got the skill positions, Daryl Henderson, which is actually pretty interesting. I think that he is going to get some work as the RB2 there. Cohen coming off the injury. Jamal Williams, who's a guy that I like this year. But if I want to get some youth, Henderson probably makes the most sense. Although it is pretty interesting. Jamal Williams is only 26. Can you believe that?
It feels like he's been around a while. I guess because he's had a lot of valuable games per se over the years. Yeah. But that's something else. Yeah.
So I mean, running backs Henderson and Williams makes sense. And at that point, if there's nothing else, maybe Matt Ryan. But with those two on the board, that kind of rules Matt Ryan out for me. Gabe Davis is an interesting receiver. I'm already at 5 receivers, only 4 running backs. I probably want to strike some balance there. But Gabe Davis, interesting. Marvin Jones, I've already got DJ Chark, but Marvin Jones, and Nelson Aguilar there. So some interesting guys. Brian Edwards is a guy that at this point I would love to get as kind of a stash guy with the 5 receivers I have. And at tight end, I would probably give Adam Troutman a look as my second tight end, really a developmental guy, and pick up a Gronk or Ertz or Cook, someone super late as my actual backup. But really going to look here to strike at running back and then have the flexibility to go either receiver or tight end in the next round. And for me, it's going to be Daryl Henderson. It is a younger player. I think he's going to have more value on the trade market. You got him. I've already got Henry, Miles Sanders, Kareem Hunt, and Mostert. So I've got 4 guys that I'm pretty confident, barring injury, will be on the field, will be playing, a good bit for their teams. And we'll see about Philly, but all 3 of the other ones are very run heavy, and it seems like LA is going to be run heavy too. So even having a couple RB2s, I'm confident they're going to get some work. So get some depth there with Daryl Henderson. After him goes Troutman, and I kind of assumed will go Matt Ryan, Drake Cohen, Marvin Jones. I'm sorry, that's Mac Jones, Gabe Davis, Austin Hooper, Jamal Williams, and Todd Gurley. Williams would have been interesting if he was still there. Like we said, you can never have too many running backs, and I'm only at 5 right now, so I'd still be looking to get a few more. But with him off the board, looking at receiver, and I'm going to go with a guy that I think you and I are both high on. Didn't have a great start to his career last year, but receiver position isn't the easiest to kind of get on the field and produce day one, like we saw with a guy like Justin Jefferson, Terry McLaurin coming out and killing it. So that's going to be Brian Edwards, getting another young receiver, a guy that I probably expect, to maybe make some strides, but he's my 6th receiver on the team. So he would, just be a little extra, which is nice. So we'll go Brian Edwards. After him, Gronk, Antonio Brown, Keyshawn Vaughn, De'Ami Brown, and then you're on the clock.
Well, I had a guy lined up, but I didn't expect Ramondre Stevenson to get to me. It seems like a pretty good value in the 14th round. Potentially a starting running back, but the guy I wanted was Russell Gage.
Mm-hmm.
Given the Julio news, we saw Gage have value with Julio there. He could really step into that role, but I'm not going to pass up a running back, and I'm sure Julio would have got to my next pick anyway.
Yeah,
so I'm going to go ahead and just lock in Ramondre there, and we will stop it there. So, Will, you want to go ahead and give a quick rundown of your team? Let us know what you think.
Sure, yeah. So at quarterback, I've got Fields and Tannehill, probably Tannehill and Fields if we're looking at just kind of starting positions this year. Running back, Derrick Henry, Miles Sanders, Kareem Hunt, Raheem Mostert, and Daryl Henderson. And then receiver, Chris Godwin, DJ Chark, Odell Beckham, Elijah Moore, Devontae Parker, and Brian Edwards. And then Travis Kelce at tight end. I'm actually really happy with this team. I feel like I usually do try to go with a huge emphasis on youth. So this is the first time, I've really done one where it's just kind of take what's there, you look maybe even to compete this year. And I think this team is ready to win now, but I've also got some young pieces in a Miles, in a Godwin. Chark's not that old. I mean, Kareem Hunt's only 25. So, you got youth and Fields and more, some rookies. I'm pretty happy with the way this team's constructed to win now, as well as, contend down the road.
Yeah, so for my team here, we got Tom Brady and Trey Lance at quarterback. At running back, Gibson, Eckler, Javonte Williams, Mike Davis, Ramondre Stevenson. At the wide receiver position, Tyreek, Julio, Cortland Sutton, Robbie Anderson, and Ruggs. And then at tight end, Cole Kmet and Blake Jarwin. I'm with you. I like this team. I'm surprised that my running back core is as good as it is, considering I went Tyreek in the beginning. I really like how those first, 6 picks probably paid out. I worry a little bit about the wide receiver core, because Robbie, I don't think anyone fully trusts him yet. I know we really like him. And Cortland Sutton we both like, but it's coming off the injury, so that kind of worries me a little bit. But wide receiver is a position you can fix a lot easier. My biggest concern is obviously tight end, but I mean, there's only so many good tight ends, and someone's going to have these problems. So I'd be confident trying to add like a Cook, and then being able to stream a Jarwin, a Komet, and a Cook. Maybe I'll even draft somebody else a little bit later and add another dart throw. That was our strategy before, is just throw a bunch of darts and one of them's bound to hit, ideally.
Just like Mark Andrews.
So yeah, Mark Andrews out of, Ian Thomas and Herndon, and, of course we had Ertz holding us over.
Yep.
So that worked out well for us, and ideally I'd hope to replicate it. But I'm with you. I like this team a fair bit too. I'm doubling back because I forgot to look at it. Our Christian McCaffrey team ended up with McCaffrey, Zach Moss, James Conner, Singletary, and Gus Edwards. Since we talked about that team the most, Will, does that team interest you at all? Is that a fun roster?
Not particularly. I mean, I'm not. I really like CeeDee Lamb, Kittle, like Evans, but I'm not thrilled with the running back depth at all. Obviously, CMC's interesting, but I'm actually looking at team number 10 over here, and they didn't go running back until the 7th round, and I kind of like their running backs, better. Obviously, CMC is hard to replicate, but with the rest of what he has, I mean, he's got Javonte Adams, DK Metcalf, Michael Thomas, and Deontay Johnson as his top 4 receivers. You got Dak, you got Kyle Pitts, obviously, but then Melvin Gordon and Michael Carter. That'd be a team I think I'd be more interested in than that McCaffrey team.
I think so as well. Part of it's the tight end.
Mm-hmm.
Like I look and be like, okay, you waited so long on another running back. Let me see your wide receivers. It's like, okay, Mike Evans is nice. Lamb, you're hoping takes a step up. Hey, Higgins just got nerfed to a degree. Lockett's fine. So I'm looking at it like not in love with it, but then you got Kittle. So it does offset. But I'm with you. I do like that team 10.
Yeah, team 10's pretty solid.
Yeah, for sure. Cool. Well, that is going to wrap up this episode. We'll be back next week with just a regular mock, right? Well, a raid draft.
Yeah, maybe we do like a 10-teamer, switch it up, get some different type of league settings in there.
Yeah, good idea. Cool. Well, until then, folks, trust your board.